Arsenal women are two steps closer to the Champions League group stage. It's a long, drawn-out qualification process, one that Jonas Eidevall was not very happy with, but one that hopefully is soon going to be fading away into the past. Arsenal have got through the first and second hurdles, really, 6-0 win over Rangers and a 1-0 win over Rosenborg. And more importantly, Daisy Goodhand, we have a new chant that is quickly becoming a fan's favourite. Shake it caldente. You were in the North Bank. Firstly, how good was that chant? You were singing it for about 20 minutes non-stop at one point.
Yeah, nobody gave me the memo that we were going to be doing the chant for the entire second half. I did actually see someone put a tweet out half time saying, I really like that Caldente chant. Can you do that again? And then I think someone took that a little bit too far and we must have sang it. Originally, we sang it about 20 times. And then as soon as the announcer said that she was player of the match, we then decided that would be our cue to continue singing that until Mariona left the entire stadium, I think. So, no, honestly, fantastic chant. Credit to whoever came up with that. I'd love to take credit, but it wasn't me. And yeah, what a player, what a performance. Obviously, nearly got the goal. I think nearly everybody got a goal. We'll get into that, but Russo hit the bar, Cooney Cross hit the bar. But Mariona really just changed the dynamic of that team. We spoke about this, what she can bring. She just proved it. And obviously we spoke about her not really getting much chance to play qualifiers in general and how that might impact. Obviously, being at Barcelona, they've had little opportunity to be at playing
Yeah.
these teams in these games, but she didn't seem like she was in any way, phased by that. She was very much still t taking it, one game at a time, playing the competitive game that's in front of us, and a little bit shy, wasn't she, when she was getting the praise? But honestly, a fantastic player and person, and brings so much to this Arsenal team.
Well, I'm going to incentivize everyone to listen until the end because I'm going to put on that Shake It Caldente chant as almost our outro music so you can have a bit of a dance. Because there was some dancing in and around the press box, I can tell you that. We were all enjoying it, all sort of filming it, but sort of grooving along, tapping our feet. And yeah, it was a nervous night in the end. And I think the chant sort of dried up in the last 5 minutes or so. Any nerves in the North Bank? Because Arsenal didn't take their chances. I mean, Rosenborg didn't create anything clear cut really as perhaps they did against Atletico Madrid, but almost the fact that they held Atletico Madrid and then got that late goal, won it on penalties. Do you think almost the previous game made things a little more nervous because they really held their own out there?
Yeah, we know what, but we saw what they did, like you said in the previous match. I thought obviously they were going to always go with that low block tactic against Arsenal. The only way really to stop Arsenal when they're free flowing and playing attacking football. I know that's completely fair to them. They're coming into this game trying to hold on, trying to prevent Arsenal from scoring and take the chances that they could. There was a little bit of nerves, I would say. Potentially the time was ticking on and we weren't getting that second goal, and you start to think it's not going to go in, is it? It's going to either end as a draw or end as a 1-0. So then there was the chances that came one after the other. Leah Williamson potentially, dropping to the floor and calling for a penalty. Mariona blazed it over. Russo and Cooney Cross, one after the other, hit the bar. So you always have a little bit of nerves. But I will say, credit to them defensively. I thought the goalkeeper was fantastic. You
Yeah.
made note of that against Atletico Madrid and said the player that she is, and she was great. The defensively they did really well. Obviously, the tactics are always going to be there. Some might label them as dirty tactics, pushing,
Parking the
committing
bus.
fouls.
Parking the bus.
Parking the bus, yeah. Not many people enjoy that type of football, but that's what they had to do. Then they came into that game, and I thought they played really well, as well. And I didn't actually see their fans in the crowd. I wish I did because I was so
There were
impressed.
some in there. They were sort of buried. I mean, they were quite open and loud in the Atletico game because it was a very quiet North Bank. But I think they were over to sort of the right of the press box, and the players, to be fair, went over and applauded them at the end. And yeah, it was a good shift. And I think that almost their win over Atletico that'll live long in the memory. They probably weren't, even expecting to be there in the final, but it was a really well organized low block. And yeah, it was a case of Arsenal created the chances again and maybe just a little bit nervous in front of goal with what was at stake. And look, when free shots hit the crossbar, I think you can sort of look and say, I think, that's it's not even bad finishing. It's just luck at the end of
Yeah.
the day. Kudus nearly scored another absolute rip snorter from like the edge of the box. And I think there was a bit of luck that was lacking and maybe just nerves by the end of the game. I don't know if you felt that in the North Bank as well.
Yeah, definitely. The atmosphere I thought was incredible. Even building on Wednesday night, getting into the North Bank and being in there is always amazing. And I think the chance as well, like those moments, like being at home in comparison to last season Champions League qualifiers, obviously away from home, on a different pitch under terrible conditions and no pre-season. You can just tell the difference, can't you? With this Arsenal side now playing in front of the home crowd, the second half scoring in front of, or not scoring, of attempting to score in front of the North Bank, it helps so much, and we can't discredit that at all. But I thought, the way that the team played, that is always optimist. It always looks optimistic with the way that they play with the attacking football. Yes, you don't take your chances. It could have been another high scorer if we'd have finished those ones that were same as the Rangers one, really. I thought we played in a very similar way. I think the fear maybe going into that game was that Arsenal would drop off slightly. But I don't think they did at all. The scoreline does not reflect the way that we performed. Yes, maybe we should be more clinical in front of goal, but like you say, it's not like we weren't trying to to attempt to score. We did have many shots on target. I think we had 29 shots in general, didn't we? Compared to their five. So definitely, we're creating the chances. It's just didn't go our way at times.
Yeah, and if you then go and stick, 4 or 5 against Häcken, then we know that the team is moving in the right direction. That one in Gothenburg next week we're going to come on to later, but that's an artificial surface as well. This can be quite common in Scandinavia, and obviously that can bring about its own challenges. There are none in the WSL, if I'm right in saying. So it is something that teams can struggle to adapt with, as Arsenal did, obviously, a Linköping last season. Arsenal naming an unchanged team. Quite a little turnaround between Wednesday and Saturday. Jonas Eidevall slammed it. Really, really went for UEFA in the WSL and maybe didn't get as much coverage as I thought. He said zero concerns about the lack of recovery time between fixtures. He mentioned it's all done from a budget perspective. That's why it's not even played on Sundays. They have it, he said they cram it on Saturdays just to save another hotel night. And what he said was all research around the world shows there's a massive difference between 72 and 96 hours recovery after a game. He said it's just science. The WSL has zero concerns. UEFA has zero concerns. Um, so, what did you make of the team selection, especially after sort of hearing that from Jonas? Did that make you surprised? Because it's almost if he doesn't play a strong team and he gets knocked out, he's going to be criticised. But he's almost actually is saying I've sacrificed my players here because we need to get through. We haven't been afforded that quick turnaround time. But the most important thing is that we have to get through because he made an unchanged team and only made two substitutions. So I was almost a little bit surprised to see him go for UEFA like that because they could almost turn around and say, well, maybe you should have rotated a squad a little bit more. But then it's that double-edged sword of actually he shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. That game could have been played on Sunday.
Yeah, he makes a really good point. There's no denying that. These competitions are squeezed in. I think if you're going to try and grow the women's game, you've really got to consider the schedule. You've got to consider recovery. We've seen the injuries. It's still happening now every single day. I know we always talk about it, but it's always going to be relevant. But looking at those games, even looking at the Rosenborg game, how tight it was, not being able to take those chances, even if we look at him, he making some changes, like you say, it disrupts the rhythm, the team that he's building. Obviously, he's got the key players that he wants to build around. I think the substitutions that were obviously made, certain players maybe didn't get a chance to come on. And it seemed like obviously the substitutions were made with a little bit of nerves maybe because he also brought on Leah Volti. We know when she comes on we're trying to study the game, we're trying to secure the midfield and make sure that there's no chance of a counter attack. I thought Marnham coming off was an interesting one. Obviously she came off for Steenham, I think, who then went with two strikers, so didn't get to see Kafaju. I think could have had a real impact in a game like that where you're struggling to get that final decision correct. So I think that was an interesting one. And off the top of my head I can't quite remember. Is that the only substitution? I can't remember the substitutions that he actually made. Was it just the two of them? Yeah, so that's obviously, about trying to maybe control, not just in case the game does end up going to a draw or even penalties. But at the end of the day, I think, the substitution Stina coming on and Beth Mead came on as well, I think. So, you
Yeah,
know,
Beth was it. Yeah.
yeah, so I feel like, you've got to praise him for making those changes. You're bringing on new attacking forwards who can impact the game and maybe finish the chances. But again, the one thing was it was just, one too many moves for Arsenal at times, wasn't it? One pass too many maybe, and that's maybe something that they're going to look at as well. But yeah, I think it's difficult with the Champions League. It's difficult with these fixtures. The format is strange and it's hard, and I'm sure Man City are also going to feel that when they have to play Paris, in that even though they come second in one of the best leagues in the world. So we can always complain about that. But Arsenal, they did the job that was in front of them. I guess that's all we can ask, really.
Yeah, I think the one thing that surprised me was maybe Kafaji not being introduced, to be honest. And I thought she maybe did enough for a start. I know Frida played well against Rangers, and obviously she was in the right place at the right time to score the goal, the decisive goal on the night. I still think maybe a finishing, that decisiveness around the final third needs a bit of work, but it was better against Rosenborg. And if anything, I'd have kept her on. Really, maybe gone with both her and Kafaji. I thought Stina was interesting. Steen, I think Russo, you almost could have replaced at that point. She obviously had missed a few chances. The goalkeeper had saved a couple, but whether you could have gone with Stina up front and then Kafaji in behind her, either with or without Marnham, that's maybe surprised me a little bit. But as you said at the top of the show, Mariona Caldente really making that impact. And we debated it when she signed in the summer whether she'd be like number 10, that left winger. She's going to make the left wing her own by the looks of it.
Yeah, and obviously we talked about the benefit of that as well, didn't we? Obviously, Ford coming in on that right hand side. I think we're seeing a lot from her in that position. And it's that idea of just putting the winger, in the right place. We maybe just hadn't thought about that for a long time, having had Beth Mead in that position. It's still going to be an interesting, discussion to have about those winger positions. Will that change if Beth Mead comes back in and, is fully fit and is contributing? And how will you fit three players into two positions? Will that number 10 role change? And there's a lot of question marks at the moment. Obviously, it's the start of the season. We don't know how that's going to look as the season goes on. So I do think that's something that Jonas has got to consider. And the players also, we mentioned this last time, there's still players on the bench that I'm looking at now and thinking, where do they fit into this side? Including obviously Lotta Moy coming back from injury, Steph Catley coming back from injury. So it's those question marks that Jonas has really got to figure out this season, and he's got to get it right. Plenty of game time to do that, hopefully.
What do you make of Kyra Cooney Cross at the moment? Leah Valti's got her work cut out to get back into the side. Obviously, she'll be a welcome returnee from injury, but Kyra's getting better and better.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously looking at Palova's injury, and we always thought there was going to be sort of an opportunity for somebody to make it really in the squad, and that's finally presented itself. Obviously, Evolti is an interesting one. She's one of my favourite players, and I think she brings a lot to that side. But obviously, injuries, you got to manage that. That's something that's been happening to her, and she's admitted that for many seasons now. And you've got a young prospect coming into the side, perhaps deserved to start more last season, but we just had the problem of not being able to fit her in, with the team that were performing. So I think this is the season for Kyra. If she stays fit, I think Jonas is back to completely, which I love. And also I'm loving the shots from the edge of the box. That's something we
Yeah.
talked about so much last season. We actually said it every single week. Why don't our midfielders take more shots? And that's what Kyra's doing. So we really, we can't really get any better than that, can we?
From a tactical perspective, then, all of the talk this season really about how Arsenal were going to go up against low blocks. They faced one from Rangers that maybe had stood firm for about an hour before those two goals went in. They faced a very stern one against Rosenborg. What have you liked, and what room is there still for improvement?
Yeah, I mean, I like obviously like the thing to breaking down a low block really is fast movement and it's movement off the ball, and that's something that I think Mariona not only impacts as herself, making the movement, but also encouraging other players to make that movement. We've seen it with Katie McCabe when she's playing on that left side with Mariona. She's making those runs, Marlon's making those runs, and Mariona's playing those 1-2s in and around the box that help break down that defensive like solidity that we saw against Rangers. We managed to break it down. Rosenborg slightly harder because they were good defenders, and that's not a reflection of Arsenal. Again, I think it's the taking shots on the edge of the box that, when you get those opportunities, you're willing to hit it, not just going, one pass too many. There were times when there was just, I think it was a Mead came on and she was sort of working with Fox, and the ball was just a bit too long, or the ball was just not right. I think if we talk about Kim Little as well, she is the key to breaking down those low blocks, those movements that she made. She made a great run into the box in behind and pulled the ball across to just to the, I think Russo narrowly missed out on tapping it in. So it's those kind of those actions that we're seeing that are so important to, Arsenal being able to score the goals and break down those difficult teams, because we are going to face them. Let's be honest. And it happens in football when you need to play I think Rosenborg played a 6-3-1. So those kind of things are going to happen, and you've got to be prepared for that. And I think positive signs, but still obviously, as always, still things to work on.
Yeah, 6-3-1 is a bit of proper football. And Arsenal, they did well in the end just to
Yeah.
get they're into that next qualifying round. BK Häcken, or Häcken, as I will inquire next week when I'm out there as to how they are pronounced. I'm going to talk about more about our Guna trip a little bit later. But one of the more difficult draws, would you say? Juventus, Fiorentina, Sporting Lisbon, and Paris FC, the other options. How do you feel about Häcken?
To be honest, I need to look into them more in terms of the style that they play. Obviously, notably, the most thing that came out of the discussion was obviously Rosa Kafaji has just come from Hacken or Hecken when we decide how to pronounce it. Stina Blackstenius also from there. So I think they've got. I think from what I know, they've got talented individuals. I think yes, it is a tough test, but I do think these games in general are always going to be a tough test, no matter who you come up against. I know a lot of people wanted the revenge against Paris FC, but is that a little bit too difficult to ask for? Because I feel like Arsenal haven't been tested defensively too much in those two games that we've just played in the Champions League qualifiers. And is that something potentially that, might not come as a surprise, but you've got to be prepared for that, right? Against a team like Hacken who are going to come in, they're going to probably create chances. Yes, they might go originally to the low block to try and prevent Arsenal from scoring early on, but they've got to be switched on defensively. That backline's got to communicate, work together, and it's something they haven't had much experience of doing in the previous game. So that's something that I think we'll have to work on. But I think it's, Arsenal are going to go into this game hopefully on the same run of form that they've been on. I think every game we need to grow, we need to learn from the previous game. I want to see, those final passes sort of being a little bit better, Russo finishing her chances, other players as well, like Manham, like you said, if she's getting that opportunity to start, we really need to see. I mean, she did score and she played, I thought, really well, so there's no criticism there, but those goals need to go in, just like they did in Rangers' second half. And yeah, I think we as awful as it sounds, you've got to show no mercy in these games, right? You've got to go for the win, and let's get into that group stage where we have to play even more difficult games until we see what happens.
Yeah, different dynamic, obviously, of the two-leg tie. Second leg at Meadow Park just gives Arsenal maybe a little bit more leeway. But Häcken reached the quarterfinals last year, knocked out by PSG in the end. They beat Paris FC in the group stage. They held Chelsea to a 0-0 draw at Stamford Bridge, and they did the double over Real Madrid as well. They had to come through the qualifying round to do so, but went all the way to the quarterfinals. Lots of talent up front. Stina Larsson, a very well-established Denmark international, and Anna Anvegard, Swedish, has been in good form. They also have an Englishwoman in Ruby Grant, who played a couple of games for Arsenal back in sort of 2018 from London, played college football, one of many in North Carolina as well. I think a little bit after maybe Lotte Wubben-Moy, Alessia Russo were out there. So again, that Arsenal and sort of North Carolina Tar Heel connection. But I think that was maybe there's an Emily Fox connection. It's again one I'll be looking into strongly. But amazing to see so many players going out to North Carolina. But she said she's looking forward to coming back to Meadow Park again. And yeah, it's a talented squad, but I just fear maybe they've lost a few players. They've lost four players to the WSL. Obviously, Rosa Kafaji to Arsenal, Anna Sandberg to Manchester United, Aisha Masaka to Brighton, and Anna Ksiki to Spurs. I think that was earlier this week. But Kafaji, a little reunion with her former club, along with Stina Blackstenius. I mean, it'll be great to have their know-how, in terms of playing on that pitch, playing up against Häcken, and knowing the Damal Svenskan well as obviously Jonas Eiderval and Kyra Cooney-Cross will have played against them in her time at Hammarby. So there's a lot of local knowledge that Arsenal can utilise.
Yeah, I think the Jonas one obviously stood out, and also the players as well. I think if you're looking at Kafaji, I think Jonas has obviously said about the team, the starting 11 that he's building and really trying to get that rhythm and not interrupting that too much. But you look at Kafaji coming up against Hacken and you think, is that an obvious one for Jonas Eiderval to slot her in there and see if she can get that goal and make that impact? I think she'll obviously know the players well. And it's a you can use that to your advantage. I'll be really surprised, but it'd be very sort of it would be very sort of disappointing if she didn't feature in that game, having had that experience playing with them not too long ago. And also, she's a huge loss for them, right? They're only just coming into not having her in the side, and not having a lot of other players, as you've mentioned, that I didn't realize they'd lost so many of their squad. So obviously, it's going to be difficult for them, but they've got to go into it fighting, and there's no doubt that Arsenal are going to be taking this like light, or easy by any means. So I think both teams fighting for it, same as what Rosenborg did, really. And at the end of the day, Arsenal need to prove their quality that they've got on the pitch, and I think we can also say the two-legged tie changes things, right? It's not just those 90 minutes. You could go away and score many. or you could not take your chances and see how that, and then play them back at home. So it gives you a either you can view that as an advantage or a disadvantage depending on how the results go. But I'm interested to see how Arsenal play against a side like this, obviously building on the performances that they've had recently.
Well, Häcken second in the Damallsvenskan, 11 points with a game. Sorry, Rosengard, the league leaders, actually have a game in hand on them and flying at the moment. They play on Saturday against Norrköping, and then Arsenal head out there next week. They have an open training, well, open to media training and press conference on the Wednesday. Sorry, on the Tuesday. The game is on the Wednesday, 6 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. local time. And I'll be off to Gothenburg next week. Delighted to say I'm getting out there on Tuesday for the open training and the press conference. We'll also have our photographer Susie Lysa out there as well. I'll be exploring the city, filming plenty of content as well as a load of written content, preview of the game, the usual player ratings, live blog, post-match reaction, and then we'll obviously have some podcasts out there. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the trip. Hopefully you'll be able to, well, if we obviously get through, we'll have a few more this season as well to look forward to, Daisy.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great, obviously, for you to get out there. Interesting to see how Arsenal perform in Sweden on the sort of artificial pitch, as you said, as well. And also, it's a real opportunity for Arsenal, and then coming back to Boreham Wood and seeing how that goes. But I think, obviously, as fans, separate to all this, we are excited for the Champions League. Fingers crossed we can get through and see, what opponents we draw. And people are already talking, maybe getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, already talking about the potential away day trips that we can do this season. But like I say, everyone's aware there's a job in front of us. Let's get past it before we jinx anything. So I'm going to say no more about all the potential places that I could tick off my bucket list because I guarantee they probably won't get there and we won't be able to go. So let's not jinx it, but I'm really excited to see what the season holds. Yeah, lots of other competitions, obviously focusing on Champions League, but I think this could be a huge season for Arsenal if they get it right. And that's just probably me being a little bit biased and optimistic. So we'll see.
Well, look, the final's in Lisbon, so I'm not going to turn that down. That should be enough motivation for all of us to want to progress all the way through. But obviously, we've got these two more qualifiers, two legs: Arsenal against Häcken next Wednesday, the return leg, as you say, at Meadow Park the following Thursday. And we'll have in-depth coverage next week from the Swedish city of Gothenburg. I'm on the flight with a load of Arsenal fans, Daisy, so I think there might be a little bit of shake it caldente as we take off, as we
Yeah.
fly through the air, and as we land. I don't know if it's going to stop.
I feel like you might need to get the lyric sheet just to make sure that you're on track with that. No, that I'm very jealous but to be honest, I think it has just left my head from the previous game. So until I see a TikTok that someone puts out or a video on social media and it sends me right back into I've seen so many people putting the lyrics out and I'm like, that's what we were singing. So no, I'm excited that that chant could be the next 24 Lacasse chant. I know there's some others that are floating around at the minute for
Kyra said it might be. Yeah, Kyra said it's almost that they said they missed the 24 Lacasse and maybe this is the replacement. But I'm sure we'll have a few more throughout the season.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a huge part of what we do. With the Arsenal women community, the chants mean so much to the players, to the fans, to everybody, and it boosts the team on. So, there's positivity around it. And yeah, it's a great chant. I need to find out who made that up because I want to give them credit. I want to shout them out.
Yeah, we'll try and discover that. Look, it started hammering it down with rain here, so I better get the washing in before I get in trouble. So we'll call it a day. I'm looking forward to seeing some Arsenal fans. Actually, we're all taking off from Stansted next week, so I'm sure I'll see a few of you at the airport if you're watching in. I'm sure I'll see a few of you for a drink out there on Tuesday and Wednesday night, and hopefully we've got something to celebrate. But looking forward to the trip. And Daisy, I'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, and have the best time out in
Thank
Sweden.
you.